Welcome to Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. My name is Amber Ireland, and I'm here with my co-host, Jill Bucaro. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Guided by Third Wheel. Today, Amber and I decided we want to talk a little bit about connection and cultivating connection, thinking about the impact that we have on other people, the impact we have by existing in this world, engaging with other people, showing kindness and love to other people. I know one of my Jillisms that I always say is what we need in this life is purpose and connection. I really think that's where contentment and fulfillment lives, is when we're able to find both of those things. I think connection can be hard in the era of social media, where we have a lot of, I don't want to say false connection, but
we have a false sense of depth of connection.
Yes, exactly. We can get hearts and likes on our stories, or we can shoot somebody a quick message or comment, but is that really the connection that our soul and our hearts need? So we wanted to talk a little bit today just about how we cultivate connection, places that we could be better at cultivating connection. I know sometimes I can get very lazy in my connection creating. I've had a couple moments recently where I think people have gone out of their way to strengthen connection with me or to reach out, and I think about how grateful I am for that and how do I put that back out into the world, because I think we need it to be happy, to be fulfilled. So what do you think, Amber? What are your thoughts on connection?
When you were talking about connection just a moment ago, about that you need connection and purpose, I was reading this book this morning and I was thinking about it while you were saying that, because it talked a lot about connection, but how a lot of people need not the social media type of connection where we can like each other's stuff and give that external validation, but they need more of that personal connection. They need that one-on-one time. They need somebody that is going to touch their arm, hold their hand, have that physical connect, give them a hug, those types of things. And when we get into the social media space, we lose that. Yeah. And then we wonder, I've got all these friends on social media. I hang out with people every day. My calendar is full, right? I'm seeing people all the time. Why do I feel so lonely?
Yeah.
Because you're not actually connecting with anyone. You're just in proximity to folks.
Yes. Ooh, that's interesting. I think sometimes we can almost exhaust ourselves with all of the proximity, right? So if you are super active on social media, or if you have a job like mine has been consistently throughout my life, where I'm with people all day long. I'm in meetings with a lot of people, and sometimes I'm in meetings with a lot of people that are my friends, that are my colleagues, or people that I at least have warm relationships with, right? I'm in meetings all day. I'm talking to clients all day. I'm hustle and bustling around town all day. I have one-on-ones, coffee meetings, lunches, but it's all businessy, right? And I have that all day. I'm in proximity to people all day. And I feel like sometimes I get fatigued from all of the proximity, and I don't make space because I'm tired for authentic connection, right? For the one-on-one dinner with a friend, or a phone call with somebody I haven't connected with in a while. So that I'm left in the same space of feeling that loneliness, right? Or feeling that isolation, even though in theory I've been with people for 14 hours that day.
Right. I find for people like you and I, and people who are busy in their calendar, busy in their job, always around people, always having these quote unquote connections with folks, it's really hard for us sometimes to sit down and wrap our heads around why we are lonely in the first place, because this doesn't make any sense.
For me, sometimes I'm judgmental about it.
Right. No, you're not lonely.
Right.
Of course you're not. Look at all the people that you talk to today. Look at all the people you have in your life. You should be more grateful for what you have. But that gratitude for what I have requires me to have some action to foster real connections.
Yes.
I'm grateful that I have people in proximity with that I have the opportunity to foster connections with. It doesn't mean that I did foster the connections.
That's exactly right. And that's what we were talking about before we jumped on today. I feel grateful to be surrounded by really good people.
Right.
I have good friends. I have wonderful colleagues, just resilient, smart people in my life that I brush up against all the time. But to your point, am I taking the time to go that step further to foster that connection? If I witness somebody be vulnerable or brave or a badass in a meeting, am I taking the time afterwards to shoot them a text or walk them to their car and say, hey, that was really brave, vulnerable, badass, etc., right? Or am I just letting that opportunity pass me by?
And also the opposite. Am I willing to be vulnerable in front of other people? Am I willing to say, I'm struggling with this, or this is hard for me, or I don't know the answer to this in front of other people, and allow them to step into space and connection with me? Because that's where I find more of the problem. I have gotten a lot better at recognizing when people are really killing it. It's like, look at you over there just shining and doing a great job. And I will tell them, and I will tell people in rooms that they aren't in, how great they are.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot better at being purposeful about doing that. Where I am not great is allowing other people to see my vulnerability and allow them to support me in the same way that I'm supporting them.
That's really fair. And I think about that in the context of my own journey. And one of my old stories that I've talked about on here is I have this bone deep belief that people don't like me, that they find me irritating and annoying and just weird. And why would anybody want to talk to me? For a lot of my life, that's manifested in shyness. I'm happy to go in and do a task, give a training, lead a meeting, something that I can put a mask on, right? I can play a part. I can put on a performance in a space. But it is hard for me to just go in and be like, hey, do you want to chit chat and be my friend? Because in my brain, I still think nobody wants to be my fucking friend, right? How that manifests to other people is an aloofness, a closed offness, that she's stuck up. Because you pair the shyness and the self-consciousness I have with someone who's been pretty damn successful in their career, and you have a bitch that thinks she's better than everybody else, when really it's the opposite.
Right.
That has been a thing that has been something I consistently work on, is what you're talking about, is how do I just let myself be a regular person? Because that's really, really hard for me to do, especially in a professional setting. I'm better at it with my friends. I'm lucky that I've had a lot of the friends that I have for a very long time, and they don't see me at work. They can see what's happening through social media and things like that, but they don't see me in those spaces. I do have a hard time in the professional space, I would say, cultivating true connection. It's hard.
Yeah, you talked about putting on that mask to perform, and I don't believe that people don't like me, but what I believe more is that as long as I'm performing, people do like me. Maybe the more true parts of myself, the more true gifts that I have, the more authentic that I am, that might seem weird to them. So I need to tamper that down a little bit and feel them out before I can share it.
You're going through a process of making yourself a bit more palatable to what you think other people want.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's been something that I have been working on for 1,000 years. And it was funny because I just told my partner yesterday, it almost feels like coming out of the closet almost. And I don't want to make light of that. It does. It feels like there is this part of me that some people are allowed to see and some people are not. And I am getting closer over to the side where I'm all the way through the door.
Sure.
But there are times that I'm like, let me just get in here and hide.
Yeah, put on my little mask.
And that makes it hard for people to fully connect with you, for new people, because that's where I am right now in my life. I feel like I've lived 1,000 lifetimes this time around, and I've had to go through cycles of people in my life. And so I'm in a place in my life now where I'm finally ready to let me open up to community again. Let me go ahead and broaden my net a bit to have more people in my life that are like-minded, but I'm finding it challenging because if I'm not going to be authentic and let people see me, what new person's going to come along and want to connect with you, weirdo?
Sure. For those of us that are good performers, that are good at reading a room, discerning what people want, putting on a show. We get that validation in the moment because people like to be entertained, right? But if people are being entertained by you, they're not connecting with you.
That's true.
Because you're not letting them, right? I don't go to a musical and think, man, that singer could be my friend.
Right.
Because I don't fucking know her. Because she just put on a show. And I was like, man, she's talented. Man, she's cool. Man, that was great. But I'm not thinking about her ever again because she served a purpose. And that purpose was entertainment. And I think some of us are good at putting on a show.
Well, and I wonder too, now that you said that, because in what we do trainings and we do podcasts. I mean, there is some entertainment value to some of those things. And those are things that I feel like sometimes I excel at because I can't put on the mask and go, right?
Sure.
Let me just do what we need to do and make a few people laugh and get some people to think about things. But as I step into who I am and my truth, I don't know how to do it in a way that's not performative. And I get stuck in, are other people going to see this as true?
That's interesting because now I'm sitting here and I'm moving through my Rolodex of people. And who are the people in my life that I don't have to be performative with? And truly, the list is pretty short. And I think there was probably a long time that I was a little bit performative with every single person. And it's just interesting to think, who are the people, probably the people you have a real connection with, are the ones where you're not putting on a show.
Yeah.
You're just existing as you are. It's hard because I think there are many of us that grew up constantly assessing the space around us. And thinking, what does everybody else here need? And how can I be what everybody needs? And some of us are very good at that. And by some of us, I mean me. I am very good at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I always joke that I can walk into a room, I can clock the energy very quickly, and I can slithery morph into whatever they're looking for.
Yep.
And that is something that I, for a long time, was very proud of myself for. I will say, in business, very beneficial.
Serves.
Yeah.
It serves.
The behavior is reinforced, let's say, because it gives you what you want. And you get what you want many, many times. But that behavior is toxic.
Yeah.
When it comes to personal connection, whether it's with romantic partners, friends, family. Because there is always, when you're performing, a little bit, I don't know if it's resentment, but certainly if you perform over time, there starts to be this disconnect, right? At least for me, where I don't know if resentment's the right word, but there's some frustration that I'm not being seen.
Yeah, well, it's stressful because every time I perform for you, I know I have to perform the next. Like, I can't show up in a different way because this has all been built on my performance.
Correct.
So I don't get to let the performance down. So if I'm tired or I'm feeling some kind of way, I don't get to bring that to the table. I have to bring the performance to the table because that's what this relationship is built upon.
Yeah.
And if I perform one way for one person and a different way for this person and a different way, that's a lot of performances to keep straight.
Which, for many of us who are performers, that is the case. It's not like we have one show.
Oh, no.
There are many shows that need to be performed.
We've got several tours that we've been running here for quite a while.
And what's unfortunate is that this learned behavior, which probably kept us safe when we were younger or in different situations throughout our lives, kept us safe, serves us well in the professional world, is really a huge barrier to the thing I think we need the most in this life, which is connection with people who genuinely care about us and love us for us.
Do you think, I'm just thinking about trainings, and we hear people say, you wear a different hat when you go to different places.
Yes.
You know? And that's really just a different performance that you go to. And how healthy is putting on a different hat everywhere you go? I would say pulling up a different skill set that you have, that would be how I would want to categorize it moving forward is I'm using a different skill set here, opposed to I'm putting on a different hat. Because I don't have to use my business skill set in general when I'm with my partner. It's just a different set of skills that I have. I don't have to pull them up for everybody. But if I have to put on a different hat, because a hat to me says I am changing my appearance.
Yes.
From one place to the next. And that doesn't feel as good.
It feels icky. And I'm thinking about...
But it's common. Everybody says that.
Yeah, they're like, put on this hat, put on that hat.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about a couple things. I'm thinking about the podcast we did 2 episodes ago about wholeness, right? And we talked in there about how often we as women are socialized to be small and or accommodating, right? And I'm thinking about, and I don't know the answer to this, there must be some people, and there are, that are just unapologetically themselves, right? Be that good or bad. And they just show up in a space and they expect everyone to conform or to accommodate who they are. I'm thinking about a meeting. There are some people that I know, good, bad, or ugly, I know exactly what I'm getting into when I walk in the door with them, right? Because they are themselves. And I'm just wondering how that intersects with privilege, about who is allowed to cause ripples, who is allowed to be themselves no matter how jarring that might be for the room they walk into, right? And let me not say, I understand that as an affluent white woman, there is only one group of people that has more privilege than me, right? An affluent white cis straight woman. I just think about that. Is there an intersection with privilege and power there that some people maybe don't have to put on hats? And I think some of the hat putting on that we do, some of the performing we do is our own shit, right? Is our own learned behavior, is our own fear, is probably our own need for control, right? Thinking that if we be who people want us to be, we can have more control over the situation. But I do think there is some societal piece to it as well.
I think there is too, but I would push back on thinking that there are some people that just show up as themselves and then they become scratchy to other people. Because I would venture to say that if I'm showing up as myself, then I'm showing up from a space of heart-centeredness, of compassion for myself and other people. If I show up that way in all my spaces that I'm in, right, and I just pull on different skill sets wherever I'm going, I might cause people to think, but I'm not going to cause people to be like, oh, I know what I'm getting into when I go in here.
I see.
And I wonder if those people are also putting on a hat that they are allowed to put on because of their privilege, but it still is not them standing in their truth. It's them standing in some form of power that they have figured out how to cultivate or was given to them, but it's not necessarily that they're living from an authentic place.
You're right, because I think sometimes you showing up as your authentic self with all of the best intentions of being your authentic self could make people uncomfortable.
Yes.
But you're right. I think there needs to be some distinguishing between I am me, I am coming from a place of love, I want there to be consensus and understanding, and to your point, some people that come in like a fucking wrecking ball with all of their worst stuff facing forward. I think that is probably a form of performance as well.
Right.
And power and control. Because in theory, in the best of circumstances, if we're assuming positive intention, we all show up heart forward in a vulnerable place, assuming good intentions, and we're able to work through it. But very rarely does that happen.
But that's where the connection comes from. The times that we are able to do it with other people, we do create that connection, if they're willing to do it too, right? Because sometimes you'll come up against somebody who's wearing a hat. And they're like, oh, you're weird. And then that makes us put our hat back on. Because
we're like, they think I'm weird.
Let me put on my, watch this. Watch this performance I have in my bag of tricks.
I'm actually not weird. There is a level of trust in connection too. And a way of feeling safe, which is probably when we go through our roster of friends and family, that the number of people where we can truly take the mask off, take the hat off, quit performing is pretty small, I would think, for most people.
I would agree. I was like thinking about my list of people, and I feel like my list of people that I have a real connection with is smaller and also strangely harder to navigate, because I feel comfortable and I can say what I need to say and I can be who I need to be, but it's strange to navigate because it doesn't feel like I'm putting in enough effort to be seen. It's still that story. You're not performing. So what are you going to do instead to bring value here so that this person doesn't reject you?
Right. I don't know what to do with my hands because I'm not putting on a show.
Right.
And I think intimacy, and I'm not just talking like romantic intimacy, is uncomfortable. For many of us, performing is way more comfortable.
Oh,
because there's a wall, right? I'm on a stage and you're in the audience, right? We have to think about performing also in the context of control. And we brushed up against this a little bit in our conversation. I love control. And if I am in charge of the performance, if you're not judging me, you're judging the performance. And I can go back and I can be like, damn, I could have zigged where I zagged, right? I could have done this instead of that. But if I'm just me and you judge me, what the fuck do I do with that?
I agree with the control. If you're performing, it is a way to control. But I can tell when other people are performing too. And I love to perform with someone else.
Oh, I do love to jump right in.
I love it when they're performing and I'm performing and I'm on the stage and they're on the stage and I'm on the stage. I mean, it's like the dueling pianos, you know?
That is fun.
I like that too. And that feels good. I have been in connected relationships where we go back and forth doing that, but then there's also a real connection. And it's like we know it's a fun game that we play, but we also have this real connection.
When we go out into public spaces, or if we are out and about with a big group of friends or at work, it isn't safe. I don't think, in most of those cases. And maybe you could argue that it is, right? But let me just say, I don't know that the answer to this is never perform, only be your authentic self.
Well, discern. You need discernment. You need to be your authentic self and have discernment as to how much. It doesn't necessarily mean I have to put the mask on, but it's not required for me to share every part of myself with every single person.
Exactly. Man, it's hard because how much is too much? What's a healthy amount of that? And I will say, this is a newer thing for me. We always talk about peeling back the onion, the next layer of growth. And I definitely feel like I'm in this space the last couple of months where I am getting really tired of accommodating so much. If that makes sense. Yeah. I am tired. When you're a social worker and when you're pushing for change and doing policy work, you eat a lot of shit because you're eating it for a higher purpose. You are pressing forward. You got to roll with the resistance, all of that kind of stuff. But it gets exhausting. And there's a lot of things going on in our world that to me are unacceptable. And I'm tired of pretending they're acceptable to help other people feel less uncomfortable. And I'm trying to figure this out because I've spent a lot of my life making sure everyone else around me is comfortable at the cost of my own comfort, right?
Yeah.
I am willing to feel very uncomfortable when the performance is over, whenever, just to ensure that everyone else around me doesn't experience that. And I'm really in a space where I'm like, no, I'm okay with making other people uncomfortable. I'm strong enough now that I'm willing to just sit in that and feel the pain. I'm tired of people walking all over me. I'm tired of people walking all over the people that I serve and advocate for. And there is a fatigue there for me, which I think is helping me take the mask off more often. But I don't know. But then I wonder, will that be to my detriment? It's scary to think.
Well, I think as long as you are living in, again, you're starting what you're doing from that place of compassion and love for other people. If you start from that point, it is never not going to serve you. That's who you are at your core. It's when we do that for a while and we get really good at it. And this is what I'm finding a little bit. You do a lot of inner work, right? And so you figure out who you are and you're like, okay, I can show up in this way that is compassionate for myself and for other people. And I can see my connection with the rest of the world and how I fit into the world and how we all fit in and how we all have our own journeys and all of these things. We do this inner work and we cultivate all of this internally, right? And then we start doing it and we start noticing that, oh, okay, this does work. Right?
Yeah, sure.
I can show up this way and this does work. It helps people. It helps me. I feel better. Then people start recognizing that you're doing this, right? And you start getting some accolades and some, oh, you're doing a great job at this. I love the way you show up this way. And then the ego jumps right back in. And then you start spiraling on you're looking at that external validation again. And so you get stuck in that. And you're creating your own misery because you're stuck in the validation. You're like, how am I going to do better? How am I going to do more? How am I going to be better than this? Because I just got this recognition at this level. So that means I need to do more. Instead of, this is what got me here. So I'm just going to keep doing this. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for honoring me. Thank you for letting me know that my light is shining really bright and it's inspiring you. But I'm not going to get into that ego. I'm going to stay over here and keep walking my path from this place of love and compassion.
Yes.
And that's where we start to get off kilter, is because people recognize it and then we need to perform more.
Right, because they're like, oh my gosh, this person thinks that I am X, right?
Yeah.
So let me just really bring it home for them.
And we
so
just step out of that heart-centered space, and then we start doing things that are out of alignment again.
Yes.
But I think that is part of that leveling up process that hopefully we get better at over time, where we don't spend as much time in that space where we're off kilter because people notice, and we can, see it for what it is and be grateful in a true way instead of being grateful for it and then performing to get more.
Exactly. A good antidote to that, to not getting stuck in that secondary spiral that you were talking about, is something we were talking about at the beginning too. Of when we have gotten to a space in our lives where we have some sort of, I don't know if I would call it like leadership, or you have people you're mentoring, you have people who look up to you, right? Which can happen in all different spheres of life. How do we not let that get to our heads, right? And spend all of our energy on, let me make sure I maintain this image, let me make sure that I'm still somebody that people want to look up to and trust. And how do we almost flip that on its head and grateful for the position that I have, for the influence that I have, and let me use that to pour into the people around me to foster that connection. Right. Because if you are someone that people look up to in whatever circle you're sitting in, your validation to them, you're reaching out to them, you have more power than they do. You just do. So are you using that for good? Are you using your power and influence to shine up any smudges that you feel like you have and making yourself look and feel perfect? Or are you taking that power and influence and giving it back to the people around you and taking advantage of that ability to form some of that connection?
Yeah. I see it as the difference between, I have the ability to remind you of your own power, your own gifts, your own growth, or I can remind you that I have more power than you.
And that you need me. And that, yes.
So if we're in the space of, oh, you're looking up to me, and is my response going to be, I'm going to remind you of who you are and the fact that you are just the same as I am, right? We are all here together. You are on a journey the same as me. You have gifts, you have purpose, and actually foster that real connection with you and be vulnerable. Or am I going to remind you that, yes, I am your mentor. Right? I am your leader.
You need me.
Right?
Yes.
Follow along. Thank you for seeing me. Because some of us do that. Even when I'm saying it, it doesn't even sound that insidious to say to somebody, oh, yeah, of course I'm your mentor. Right? But it is, because you aren't any different than they are.
No. And it's that belief that our freedom and our liberation and our happiness is all bound up with everybody else's. If I am operating in a way that is in any way, shape, or form selfish or self-serving, I believe wholeheartedly that karma is coming back for me.
Right.
And so how do I, to your point, put my own ego, my own insecurities to the side and remember, no, we truly are all in this together. This isn't some zero-sum power game. How do I remember that it is my job to keep the playing field level and engaged and connected? So there we are.
There we are.
On connection. Connection's hard. And maybe this is just my own experience. Purpose has always been easier for me than connection.
I would say yes to that as well. Sometimes I struggle to find where my purpose fits in, but it's always there. But then it's like, okay, this is my purpose. How do I connect with other people and live in this purpose? Because oftentimes I'm afraid to show the purpose. In the connection.
That's true. Getting up and knowing what to fight for, hustle for, that I feel good about. And I feel good that if I got run over by a truck today, I did some good things in this world. I feel good about that.
Yeah.
It's the relationships and the being authentic. It's hard stuff. And I don't think anything about our world right now makes that any easier.
Oh no. There's a lot of perfect trauma portrayal is what I would call it, because I think people are trying to be more vulnerable and share their stories, share about the things that they have struggled with. But the people who have not come out of that yet on the other side, the people that are still struggling, do not feel empowered to share that, because if you don't have a nice bow at the end of your story, then don't put that on social media, because somebody's going to look at you some kind of way.
Right. Yeah.
And most people don't have that nice tidy bow on the end of their story. They might have it in some areas, but for the most part, we're kind of moving through and we're healing different pieces. We're pulling away those layers of the onion. The second we heal one thing, we're over here and we're like, oh my God, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And it does make it hard that if you don't have the lifetime movie story, then don't share your trauma. But that's the place where when we are being vulnerable with other people and we are sharing any of the human struggle that we all experience on one level or another, sharing that with other people is vulnerable, but it also builds a nice connection with people, because it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
We can all look at someone else and hear what they've gone through and relate in some way, even if we haven't gone through exactly what they've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
Even the worst things that we think about ourselves.
Absolutely. Like anybody who is talking about having a perfect bow, anybody who's talking about like they have arrived, that's just a lie. Like I don't think any of us ever arrive ever. It's like you said, okay, I feel like I got this under wraps. It's like whack-a-mole. Now this has popped up. Mm-hmm. And life is going to keep lifing.
Right.
Challenges are going to keep coming. And so there are no bows. That's the fucking big secret. Is there is no tying up of anything.
I don't want to take away hope from people, because we think linearly. We're humans, we think in a linear way. We think eventually this too will pass, right?
Sure.
You will move through things. It doesn't mean that the next layer that comes is going to be worse than the first layer that was there. It doesn't mean that your life is going to be this constant chaos. But what it is as you build more skill, as you level up, then there are going to be more things for you to look at so that you can heal those things and level up again.
Exactly.
Like the things that you need to look at allow for the growth. The healing allows for the growth. I don't want anybody to think, oh, every time I fix something, then it's just going to be one more terrible thing coming around. It doesn't really work that way. No, I just see it as different levels of healing that I couldn't have done before. I couldn't have done them in a different order.
It's growth, yeah, and it has to be done in that order. And if you are at any moment just sitting and looking around and everything is perfect, right? There is nothing I need to heal. There is nothing I want to cultivate. There is nothing. Then one, you are so dissociated, I don't even know where to find you. Or two, you're lying to yourself. And like you were saying on social media, there are some people that are, here I am in the perfect bubble. Yeah. And we believe that other people are experiencing that. And that is when we're like, oh no, my inadequacies. But our rough edges and our growing and the messiness, that to me is like the beauty of life. Mm-hmm. I am not interested, quite honestly, in having authentic connection with people who are perfect, because they don't exist.
Well, but they can't have authentic connection with you necessarily if they're not in touch with who they are.
Exactly. We are all just trying to make it. And I think there is some beauty in that. Ooh, you want to pull a card for us?
Yeah. All right. So we are going to pull from the Faces of Ocean. I think we've done this on the podcast before.
Mm-hmm. I think we have pulled. This is a pretty deck. I like this one.
So let's take a deep breath together and release. And as we do, we will set our intention that we will receive exactly what we need from this podcast and from this card pull today. And hopefully we will learn more about authentic connections and how we show up for them and what we're looking for in other people.
There it is.
All right, so we pulled, it's a number 31. It's Ocean of Soft Power. And it says influence, openness, and emotional intelligence. And so it says, I wield the power. Oh my goodness. Let's start again. I wield the power of vulnerability, openness, and emotional wisdom. I mean, and then mic drop, and we can go ahead and close. So it says here, in the arena of soft power, strength does not lie in force. Ocean of Soft Power reminds us to embrace subtlety and grace as you navigate your path. It's a call to wield your influence with compassion, diplomacy, and understanding. Soft power is not weakness. It's an art of finding common ground, inspiring change through empathy, and fostering connections. It invites you to recognize that true strength often emerges from the ability to listen, empathize, and communicate with authenticity. So all of the words that we have said throughout the podcast has been summed up today by Ocean of Soft Power.
And I think a good reminder of how we want to show up in the world when we are trying to forge authentic connection. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. We would be honored if you would like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, be well.